It's now live.
And auto recording. Okay.
Oops. So I can't see anything at the bottom while I'm sharing. Wait, there it goes. It's at the top now. Okay. Great. Yeah, good morning, everyone. We'll get started in about a minute as people come in. All right, I'll go ahead and get some of the housekeeping out of the way. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the 8th in our series of free webinars from Fallingwater. This one's going to be on good design and Edgar Kaufmann Jr., which is celebrating 70 years this year. First, introductions. I'm Rebecca Hagan. I'm the registrar at Fallingwater. So basically I oversee the care and documentation of the collection, and I'm joined by Scott Perkins, who is our director of preservation and collections, and then of course Gabrielle Roth, who we'll hear from later today. Please feel free to be asking questions throughout the presentation. You'll see that Q&A button either at the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on how you're viewing. So keep sending in your questions, and Scott and I will be looking out for them, and we will be asking or sending those to Gabrielle at the end. So please send them our way, and thank you for joining us. After today, you will be able to view this webinar on our website, as well as the 7 past webinars. We have a new tab at the top, virtual experiences, and you can get there directly, fallingwater.org/fallingwater from home. We have webinars, we have activities for kids and families, and we also just launched over the summer our virtual portal for our online sort of collections database. So all of the collections in the house, you will be able to view on our website, which we're really excited about. As many of you know, the Kaufmann family used their country home to bring a lot of different materials in for furnishings. We have folk art, we have fine art, everything from ceramics to paintings and sculpture, like this bronze bodhisattva you see here on the West Terrace. On the far right is Edgar Kaufmann Jr. This is in 1957. On the left is his partner Paul Mayen, and Paul's sister Floris in the front. The Kaufmanns, again, decorated this house with a diverse mix of materials from around the world, and Edgar Jr. continued that legacy when he took over, when he inherited it from his father, Edgar Sr. And although he dedicated it to, or donated it to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy in 1963, he did continue his sort of curatorial oversight until his death in 1989. And so we do continue that legacy in terms of all the furnishings in Fallingwater are as they would have been when the Kaufmanns lived here. And we continually refresh and renew the space with new textiles as appropriate. But of course, as you can imagine, maintaining the collection can be pretty challenging at times, and it's an ongoing project. And this year, a lot of our historic preservation and the conservation of our collection work has been put on hold. So if any of our Friends of Fallingwater members are joining us today, thank you so much for your support. It's from members like you that we're able to continue our work on the collection. So thank you very much. And before I pass it over to Gabrielle, I did want to quickly mention our internship program. So Gabrielle was an intern this summer, this past summer, 2020, at Fallingwater. We have a very robust internship program. We have everything from landscape interns to collections, preservation, education, communications. We've had a pastry chef working with our cafe. And so we pull from a lot of different backgrounds. And this is a 10-week summer program. Right here, you can see our collections intern who did research on our salt glazed stoneware in the collection. We have preservation and collections interns working with our archive. And so here you can see some architectural drawings and some historic images. We have another preservation intern working on the architectural artifacts collection, and then a lot of good hands-on work too, working with the house. We have some landscape interns here on the right who were designing and building a pergola for our Bear Run Nature Reserve, where we have weddings and other events. So it's a very active program, and thankfully Gabrielle was willing to work with us this summer because, of course, as things changed and COVID sort of shook things up for all of us, we had to go virtual. Usually we have our interns on site, and that's a big part of the program, but we're so grateful that Gabrielle was able to lend us her expertise and able to join us virtually this summer. But if you are interested, or you know someone who would be interested in joining us for an internship, we do have our internships up right now on our Western Pennsylvania Conservancy page, waterlandlife.org/internships, where you can learn more about the positions as well as how to apply. And this is a paid internship, and you do get on-site housing in a normal year. And thankfully, Gabrielle did get to join us for 1 week. But on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Gabrielle, who's going to tell us more about her project this last summer, where she researched the Good Design Project and how Edgar Kaufmann Jr.'s work there as the director of the program influenced our collection here at Fallingwater. So thank you so much, Gabrielle.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just going to go ahead and pull up my screen here. All right. Hi all, I'm Gabrielle, and today I'm fortunate enough to speak to you in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the MoMA Good Design exhibition series, highlighting the integral role that Edgar Kaufmann Jr. played in their curation, the diverse group of designers included, and a few key pieces that influenced the decor that we associate with Fallingwater today. In this photo on the right, you can see Charles and Ray Eames with Dorothy Shaver, the president of Lord & Taylor Department Store, and Junior at Good Design. The Good Design logo on the left was designed by Chicago designer Mort Goldschall in 1950. The black dot and square-shaped logo is used globally by winning companies to publicly announce that their products and graphic designs have met the most strident and professional criteria and highest standards for international design excellence. I'm originally from California, from a coastal farming town halfway between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. I have a background in the fine arts, receiving a BFA from Cal State Long Beach and an MFA in sculpture from Rutgers. During graduate school, I started working in preservation framing, where I took an interest in paper conservation and special collections. After which, I took a position at an architecture firm in Philadelphia that specializes in historical building renovations, which is where I was introduced to my favorite place in Philly. It's not a tourist stop like the historic City Hall or the Rocky statue at the PMA, but the foyer of the water department building next to the Hard Rock Cafe in Center City. It has the most amazing and strange neoclassical fountain mural. It's a must-see if you're ever in town. I'm about to embark on my final semester as a graduate student in the Master's in Information Studies program at the University of Texas at Austin, where I'm focusing on archives and preservation and museum studies. This summer, I was fortunate enough to be the Judy Cheteyan collections intern at Fallingwater. Due to COVID-19, I worked primarily remotely with Director of Preservation and Collections Scott Perkins and Registrar Rebecca Hagan, though I did get to spend 1 week at Fallingwater at the end of the summer. Scott and Rebecca were incredibly generous with their time and made the week an incredible experience filled with plenty of opportunities to explore the property and home at Fallingwater, the collection storage, a few top secret spots on site, and the nearby Wright Usonian home, Kentuck Knob. Their knowledge and passion for sharing Fallingwater allowed me the unique opportunity to work over the summer remotely without the complete disconnection from the space. And I'm incredibly grateful for their dedication. Just had to plug Scott and Rebecca because they're amazing. I want to start off today by talking about the Kaufmanns as tastemakers. As successful department store owners in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Kaufmanns were no stranger to curating the objects that adorned the lives of many. Their lifestyle and interest in progress and modernism, as well as their status as a successful Jewish family, set them apart from many other affluent families in Pittsburgh. The Kaufmanns enjoyed a cosmopolitan lifestyle. They traveled frequently and ran in circles of intellectuals and creatives. Kaufmann's was a testament to their interest and support of design and the arts. The department store was redesigned in the 1930s by architect Benno Jensen and featured 10 murals by Boardman Robinson, curving striped displays designed by Laszlo Gabor, and a revolutionary concealed floor-to-ceiling lighting. Harper's Magazine called the store perhaps the most beautiful department store in the United States, if not in the world. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the redesigned store in the 1930s, Kaufmann Sr. spoke of his mission to establish the store as a vehicle for the modern movement and sought to offer the simple and beautiful in all types of merchandise and commodities. Lillian and Junior also had prominent roles in the store. Lillian revitalized the store with a selection of high-end shops called the Vendome, where modern and antique homewares and craft pieces commingled casually to demonstrate the flexibility and elegance of modern design and living. And now to talk about Edgar Jr. Born in 1910, Edgar Kaufmann Jr. shared his parents' interests in the arts. After finishing preparatory school in Pennsylvania, he went to Europe in 1929 to study at the School of Arts and Crafts in Vienna and spent 3 years as an apprentice to the Austrian painter and typographer Victor Karl Hammer in Florence, Italy. As you can see on the left, we have a painting by Hammer. As Nazism took hold in Europe, Jr. returned to the US in 1933 and moved to New York to pursue painting. Hammer later immigrated to the United States, fleeing Austria during Nazi occupation in 1939, eventually settled in Kentucky. In the summer of 1934, Jr. read the 1932 autobiography of Frank Lloyd Wright and set off to apprentice with Wright at Taliesin Fellowship in Wisconsin. During his 6-month stay at Taliesin, the Kaufmanns visited, and lore says that it was on this visit that they asked Wright to design the home for their property in Bear Run, Pennsylvania, which we now know as Fallingwater. Jr. returned home to Pittsburgh in 1935 to become the merchandise manager for home furnishings at Kaufmann's department store. It's during this time that the Kaufmanns began to sponsor the immigration of Jewish intellectuals, artists, and other modernists whom were seen as a threat to the Reich from Europe to the United States, employing many of them at the store for some time, including Laszlo Gabor, whose displays brought the store so much positive attention. In his role at Kaufmann's, Jr. worked to promote modern and progressive design, curating an exhibition of Wright's Broadacre City and co-curating Below the Rio Grande, an exhibition of Mexican textiles, antiques, and art objects with Lillian. In the late 1930s, Jr. enlisted the department store as a site for the Museum of Modern Arts in New York's traveling exhibition series like Useful Objects Under $15 and 40 Prints by Modern Artists. In the 1940s, Jr. approached MoMA with the concept of a collaborative furniture competition to be judged by the museum and exhibited at the department store. In 1941, Jr. and MoMA's director of industrial design, Elliot Noyes, organized organic design in home furnishings, which was displayed at MoMA and at Kaufmann's. Jr. continued to work with the museum as a contractor of sorts for several years, developing close relationships with MoMA departmental heads. His knowledge of European design set him apart. In this slide, you can see the BKF chair, also known as the Hardoi chair, butterfly chair, safari chair, sling chair, or wing chair, which was designed in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Its name credits its 3 designers. The first 2 BKF chairs to come to the United States went to Fallingwater and to MoMA. Kaufmann Jr. accurately predicted that this lightweight and inexpensive lounge chair would become hugely popular in the United States, particularly on the West Coast. Arctic Pasco produced the chair from 1941 to 1948, sending royalties back to Argentina. Knoll Associates acquired the US production rights in the 1940s and unsuccessfully pursued legal action against unauthorized copies, which continue to be produced to this day. The BKF chair, a favorite of Fallingwater's registrar, Rebecca Hagen, can be seen at Fallingwater, where a leather-slinged version is displayed in Edgar Kaufmann Sr.'s study. and canvas versions of the butterfly chairs are peppered about the terraces. After serving in the United States Army from 1942 to 1945, Junior returned to the States, moving to New York, where he would work as a curator and eventually the director of Industrial Design Department at MoMA from 1946 to 1948. There he oversaw the department's exhibitions, competitions, and organized conferences. This slide features an example of such competition. The 1947 Printed Textiles for the Home. Winning textile designs are displayed on the left, and on the right you can see Junior awarding the first prize check to designer Yvonne Delattre in the company of Zelina Brunswig, whose company had agreed to produce the winning fabric for consumer purchase. In 1948, the Department of Industrial Design merged with the Department of Architecture and was headed by architect Philip Johnson. Junior continued his employment at MoMA as a research associate and consultant in industrial design and served as the competition director for MoMA's design projects, art furniture, and international competitions for low-cost furniture. This slide features an entry panel for the MoMA low-cost furniture design competition in 1949 by Charles and Ray Eames. A bit more on the Eames. So Charles and Ray Eames were married in 1941 and moved to California, where they developed a process for molding plywood. During World War II, the United States Navy commissioned them to produce molded plywood splints, stretchers, and experimental glider shells. In 1946, Evans Products began producing Eames's molded plywood furniture. Their molded plywood chair was called the Chair of the Century by the influential architectural critic Esther McCoy. Charles and Ray Eames are well known for their contributions to furniture and industrial design, films, exhibitions, toys, and architecture. They approach problem solving as an adventure, combining discipline with a sense of play. Together with the multi-talented Eames office staff, pair set a standard for design excellence that still inspires current generations. Herman Miller took over the production and Vitra started manufacturing their chairs in Europe. They continue to manufacture the furniture today. Now, there's not much to say about the Eameses in terms of falling water because Junior didn't feel that their aesthetic was quite the right fit, but they were represented quite a bit in the Good Design series. And I believe that some of their work is present at the Palm Springs home of the Kaufmanns. So if you're ever in Palm Springs, I guess you can go and see it there. From 1949 to 1955, Junior worked as the director of Good Design Series, a collaboration with the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. The exhibition series accepted entries at the Merchandise Mart twice per year, with standout pieces selected for a year-end exhibition at MoMA. The Merchandise Mart in Chicago opened its showrooms to fledgling and seasoned designers in a display of objects that would be available to other department stores and retailers for purchase with the Good Design logo, a signal of approval that promoted the products as well as the museum's identity as a trustworthy source for tasteful home furnishings and lifestyle objects. The Good Design competition continues today. The Chicago Athenaeum continues to celebrate industrial designers with Good Design awards yearly, touting over 40,000 awards bestowed in the last 70 years. The program recognizes designers and manufacturers for advancing new and innovative product concepts that push the envelope beyond what is considered standard product and consumer design. In a press release by MoMA in 2009, they stated that good design was MoMA's doctrine and its preacher was Edgar Kaufmann Jr. Junior's unique background in fine arts, architecture, and retail gave him an edge as the curator of the series, focusing on eye appeal, function, construction, and price. Although the series was meant to highlight American industry, Junior also included many works from European, primarily Scandinavian designers to create a focused aesthetic that reflected a spirit of international collaboration and camaraderie. Junior was active in the Good Design series, not just as the curator, but as a thinker. He was passionate about democratizing design features and exposing American households to the sustainable, functional, and simple aesthetics of modern design and industry. Junior organized discussions around the subject of good design and published pamphlets regularly on the subject. Products meeting the requirements of good design, according to Junior, merged form and function and demonstrated an awareness of human values expressed in relation to industrial reproduction for a democratic society. The exhibitions were a unique fusion of design and the marketplace, bringing together collections of consumer products of high design quality that could be studied, handled, and ultimately purchased by the public. Throughout the summer, I worked with MoMA Good Design Materials from Edgar Jr.'s time at MoMA as the director of the Industrial Design Department. You can see him here in this short video clip from News of the World for Women.
Our correspondent reports on home furnishings, rather unusual ones. Each year, New York's Museum of Modern Art holds a good design exhibit to show the public the best in current design for modern living. Mr. Edgar Kaufmann, director of the exhibit, is showing an Eames chair, which can be covered in any number of interchangeable materials. This one happens to be of leather, but others can be of linen, tweed, or cotton. What is actually an American design looks Japanese, a lantern with a washable plastic shade. The dinnerware, on the other hand, is German, and its soft coloring is achieved by a white glaze over a red-brown clay body. For a house where space is scarce, this nest of walnut tables is ideal, for one table changes into 5. They aren't cheap, though. They cost over $400. Mr. Kaufmann displays a light and graceful chair of Italian design. The seat is not of rush, for it has a silvery look. It's made of beautifully textured but sturdy cellophane. The desk lamp has some unusual qualities, too. It's really 2 lamps, a big one and a little one, which can be changed for reading convenience. The base is cast iron, while the shade is spun aluminum. Here are 2 things worth noting. The beach chair's cloth covering is washable nylon, and the Lazy Susan is virtually unbreakable. The bowls are enameled copper set in a black wood base. The table and chair in this exhibit are not only well designed but reasonably priced. The table is under $50, while the chair is under $30. But the wall lamp, which becomes a table lamp, is what seems to interest our host at the moment. The lamp demonstrates what is so true of the whole exhibit, that function combined with good taste results in good design.
All right, so that was the Anywhere lamp at the end, and you can see that Junior was quite interested in that. This lamp was part of the MoMA collection, and it was featured in Good Design in 1952. Now, Greta von Nessen was a Swedish industrial designer who ran Nessen Studios with her husband, Walter von Nessen. She's most well known for her Anywhere lamp, which is now part of the MoMA collection, and has also been featured on a postage stamp. Unfortunately, like many female industrial designers of the time, not much is known about von Nessen aside from her widely successful Anywhere lamp. Using exhibition catalogs such as the one seen on this slide and checklists from 5 years of Good Design culminant exhibitions at MoMA, I transcribed the materials into an Excel spreadsheet, creating a searchable master checklist or catalog for the collections department at Fallingwater to use in identifying and illuminating the connections between the objects, textiles, and designers that Junior acquired for the collection at Fallingwater. You can see here my spreadsheet. During the 5 years that Junior oversaw the Good Design program, the culminating exhibitions featured 1,414 individual recorded items, ranging from textiles and tablewares to large furniture pieces, sporting goods, and domestic appliances such as dishwashers and hand drills. The 1,414 items were designed by 340 designers, 62 working in collaboration. Manufactured by 414 different manufacturers in at least 4 countries and sold by 100 retailers nationwide, not including direct sale items. Of the 340 designers, I was able to compile biographical information for 173 independent designers from Europe and the United States. I think an interesting avenue for exploration would be to track the gender and also nationality of the designers, in addition to the location of the manufacturer and retailers. The checklist includes account for how many items each designer contributed to the exhibition series over the 5-year period. alluding to relationships between the popularity of designers and the frequency of their selection at Good Design, supporting the impact that the exhibition series had on popular design in America at the time, and the assertion that mid-century Scandinavian design and America's popularity was heavily influenced by Junior's time at MoMA. Some progressive voices in design. While gathering designer biographies, I stumbled upon a story about textile designer Joel Robinson, a Black American working in the predominantly white field of design. Robinson is the first known Black designer to be exhibited at a MoMA Good Design exhibition and the first to enter the Architecture and Design collection with his ovals textile seen on the left. The textile was featured in the 1952 and 1955 exhibitions and is shown in the article clipping on the right from Ebony magazine. Though he received a fair amount of attention at the time for his strikingly original textile designs, much about his life since his inclusion in Good Design exhibitions has remained unknown. In 2019, a piece by MoMA Post writer Andrew Gardner highlighted Robinson's role in Good Design and made attempts at answering for the lack of information about Robinson, who was featured in Ebony magazine in 1952, both for his professional accolades and inclusion in Good Design, and also as an eligible bachelor. Gardner found that Robinson had trained as an architect, but when no New York firms would hire him due to the color of his skin, he began to work in advertising. It was there that he connected with Anton Mix and developed textile designs for the brand on the side. In 1954, Robinson had married and moved to Brooklyn and was promoted to the vice president position at David D. Polon Advertising Agency. Nothing more is known about him after this position. Now to connect things back to Fallingwater. While Rebecca was scanning Good Design photographs to send me this summer, she recognized the shape of this chair from the Fallingwater collection's patio furniture pieces. It may have once lived its life on the pottery terrace. The chair was designed by Darrell Avard Landrum in 1951 for his company, Avard Inc., and was featured as a popular seller in the 1955 culminating exhibitions of Good Design at MoMA. The chair originally featured a black iron frame and foam cushions with linen covers, and was painted Cherokee red by Junior to match the Fallingwater color theme selected by Frank Lloyd Wright. Not much personal history is known about Landrum, but he was a prominent and forward-thinking designer who was a contemporary of Jacqueline Orr Larson and Paul Mayen. He participated in a film produced by the Chemstrand division of the Monsanto Company called Projections, where they explained their thoughts and design concepts for an ever-advancing world, which included inflatable sofas and spray-on fiber kits for quick interior textile changes. The curved laminate maple lounge chair by Swedish designer Bruno Mathsson provides the perfect angle for relaxing with a good book. Mathsson, an architect and furniture designer, was the son of a cabinet maker and spent the 1920s developing techniques for bending wood as seen in this easy chair. The 1934 design was produced with hemp webbing that provided gentle support and allowed air to circulate through in warmer months. A swiveling wood reading stand attached by a steel pole to the chair was removed by Kaufmann and attached to the wall next to his bed. The lounge chair is now located in Edgar Jr.'s study at Fallingwater, and the reading pole can still be seen affixed next to his bed. Mathsson constructed approximately 100 structures in the 1940s, many of which featured all glass walls and heated floors. He is said to have developed a triple insulated glass that he named Bruno Pane, and was influenced by his travels to the United States, where he saw solar houses of George Fred Keck and the Eames House. The next piece that I want to highlight is the Alvar Aalto Savoy vase. Alvar Aalto was a Finnish architect and designer. His work included architecture, furniture, textiles, and glassware, as well as many sculptures and paintings. Although he completed sculptures and paintings, he never regarded himself as an artist. He saw painting and sculpture as branches of the tree whose trunk is architecture. But his Savoy vase was featured in the Good Design series and is a part of the collections at MoMA and Fallingwater. You can still purchase the Alto's iconic vase at the Fallingwater and MoMA gift shops in a variety of colors true to the original manufacturer. You can see here on the left a clear crystal version of the vase on display at Fallingwater, and on the right you can see a amber colored glass that's part of the MoMA collection. One of our favorites, the Finuel 45 armchair. Finuel made his US debut in 1951 at the Good Design exhibit in Chicago and at MoMA in New York. Ewell was a Danish architect, interior and industrial designer, most known for his furniture design. He's one of the leading figures in the creation of Danish design in the 1940s, and he was the designer who introduced Danish modern to America. The 45 armchair can be seen here in Edgar Jr.'s study with a modern lumbar pillow designed exclusively for Fallingwater by London-based textile designer Eleanor Pritchard. In July, Eleanor and Rebecca Hagen had a wonderful online session about the Fallingwater textile collection and Eleanor's creative process that you can access through the Fallingwater at Home online resources, and I highly recommend that you do. The Finuel 45 armchair is a staple of modern design. It combines comfort, aesthetics, and craftsmanship for a timeless piece. Because of its popularity, you can still purchase the 45 armchair through Design Within Reach, a company started by Rob Forbes in 1998, which gives all consumers access to designer furniture pieces without the secret handshake, but I do warn, it still has the price tag. One of my favorite things that I found out when I was doing this project this summer was the popularity of the ashtray. Now, an item that's almost taboo in today's world, the ashtray was a staple of the home in the 1950s. There were 30 ashtrays featured in the exhibition series of Good Design. It seems like nothing, but out of 414 objects, right? But considering there was only around 30 items that were categorized as cups and 27 that were categorized as spoons in the exhibits over 5 years, this stood out to me. The Fallingwater database shows approximately 3 ashtrays, which are part of the current collection. But based on photographs that show the active social climate of the home, it's likely that there was once many more. One ashtray in the collection is by American ceramicist Edith Heath, who also had a collection of personal ashtrays that were featured in the Good Design series in 1952. Heath was an American studio potter and founder of Heath Ceramics with her husband, Brian Heath. The company was well known for its mid-century modern ceramic tableware, which they called Heathware, and architectural tiles. You can still purchase directly from Heath Ceramics, which is an employee-owned and operated ceramic and houseware factory founded in 1948 by Edith and Brian in Sausalito, California. Fallingwater recently acquired a set of vintage Heath dinnerware, which will soon be on display in the home. You can see the ashtray on the left of this slide is on display in the guest house, and on the right you can see a photo courtesy of Rebecca of the new Heathware in the collection storage. MoMA featured Dansk brought Danish design to mid-century America in 1956 with its iconic Coben-style cookware. The company's tabletop collections quickly became fixtures in stylish kitchens from California to Calgary. This classic teak and stainless steel dinner set, which is a part of the MoMA's collection, has long been a coveted vintage item. You can now purchase this set of dinnerware and a handcrafted version that's true to the original through the MoMA design website. Created by head designer Jens Kitsgaard, the casual elegance form of these utensils is suitable for setting the table for everyday dining and chic dinner parties alike. This Dansk Fjord teak silverware set is reminiscent of the aesthetic of Good Design, and you can see it on display at Fallingwater. Probably the most exciting discovery made during the scanning process this summer, aside from, the ashtrays, was the attribution of a mystery Norwegian knockdown chair that's currently located in the guest house bathroom at Fallingwater. While scanning Good Design images, Rebecca noticed some similarities between 2 chairs by Norwegian designer Arne Hyorth. While neither design was featured in the Good Design exhibition series, they were featured in the Design in Scandinavia traveling exhibition, which toured the US in 1954 through 1957. Junior reviewed the exhibition and called Arne Heyarth's ingenious and the chair's design noteworthy. Further research suggests that the chair was part of Arne Heyarth's 103 series of collapsible or knockdown chairs that were manufactured in 1953, and they were popular as an export product. So these images on this slide on the right and the left are from the Good Design collection of images. However, they were not featured in the Good Design seminal show at MoMA in 1954. Paul Mayen. We would be remiss not to mention the work of Paul Mayen when reflecting on the relationship between MoMA and Junior. Although only featured a mere 4 times throughout the exhibition series for Good Design, it is thought that this is perhaps where Junior and Mayen met. Mayen was a Spanish architect and industrial designer who came to the US to study at Cooper Union and Columbia during World War II. He was the founder of Habitat, Intrex, and Architectural Supplements Incorporated, and he and Junior were longtime partners. Mayen designed the esteemed Visitors Pavilion at Fallingwater in the late 1970s. And like Junior, Mayen's ashes were scattered at Fallingwater following his passing in 2000. On the left, you can see a table lamp that was featured in Good Design that was manufactured by Mayen's company, Habitat Incorporated, in 1953. It's now part of the MoMA permanent collection. And on the right, as Rebecca pointed out earlier, you can see Paul Mayen lounging in a BFK chair, Edgar Kaufmann and Mayen's sister Flores at a terrace at Fallingwater. I just want to take a moment to reflect on Junior's legacy. Junior resigned from MoMA in 1955 upon the passing of his parents, Lillian in 1952 and Senior in 1955, and his inheritance of Fallingwater. After his tenure at MoMA, Junior worked as a lecturer at Parsons, MIT, and Columbia. Despite never attending college himself, Junior was considered a scholar as much as a tastemaker. He wrote and published on design and was regarded as one of the leading scholars on Frank Lloyd Wright. In 1963, he donated Fallingwater and an endowment to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy so that the home could be open to the public. Fallingwater, as an inspiring symbol of 20th century creativity, will always be recognized as the Kaufmann's most distinguished contribution to the modern movement. As a museum, it offers an intimate view into one of modernism's most dynamic and influential families. Until his death in 1989, Kaufmann Jr. devoted his life to academic and philanthropic work, giving to museums and organizations that promoted the arts. My favorite quote by him is from 1948. He said, "Good design in any period is simply a thorough merging of form and function, and an awareness of human values expressed in relation to industrial production for a democratic society." One of the things that Junior held dear was this idea that design belonged to everyone. It shouldn't just belong to the upper class. And that was one of the reasons that Good Design really set itself apart in terms of exhibitions at MoMA. And in fact, it was a matter of issue between Kaufmann Jr. and Philip Johnson, the architect who ran the department after the merger of industrial design and architecture at MoMA. Johnson believed that architecture should be something for the elite and that the museum had a responsibility to its public to represent things that were of a higher cultural standard. And Kaufmann didn't hold this same belief. He thought that the things on display should evoke something of the lifestyle of every viewer and should be attainable to a spectrum of people, regardless of their income level. So that was something that really separated him from the rest, despite his extremely privileged upbringing. So I think that's something that I like to resonate with in terms of Junior's outlook on life and his view of design. To finish up, we're just going to rest on this slide and I will pass it back to Rebecca and Scott.
Yes, thank you so much, Gabrielle. That was so wonderful. And before we get to questions, we did want to again thank all of our Friends of Fallingwater members for joining us today. You can certainly become a member on our website, and it is through the support of people like our members that we are able to continue working on not only the collection we talked about today and the ongoing conservation work that we need to do for that, but also for the house, the historic preservation work, all of which is ongoing. So thank you all so much for your support. And Scott, do you have any questions you want to start with? I did see some about good design objects and sort of what came first, the Fallingwater good design objects or the MoMA. And I would certainly say that it seems like Junior was sort of buying one for each, and buying one for Fallingwater, buying one for MoMA at the same time. But Scott, you may have more insight, or Gabrielle, on that.
Gabrielle's muted, but I don't know if you were able to sort of discern that. You know, we have some sense of what was on exhibit, but we don't know exactly when it sort of entered the house, I guess.
It certainly seemed like he was, so like one thing that was awesome was that at the merchandise mart, you had everything, right? So people were able to kind of submit anything. And while some items were selected to put on display at MoMA, it actually seems like a lot of objects that didn't quite make it to MoMA did make it to the house at Fallingwater. And I think that's because sometimes there were things that Junior thought were amazing, but maybe didn't quite fit in with the rest of what he was putting together for good design at MoMA. And I don't know, I think that it is very hard to tell which came first, the chicken or the egg, because we weren't, keeping records. And Rebecca, of course, can speak to this a little bit more about how we know where things came from at Fallingwater. But I do think that his personal space in New York and the mountain home that he shared with Mayan may possibly have had more pieces in them that were reflective of his tastes and the legacy he left to MoMA, because they were fresh slates for him, I guess.
Yes, and as you mentioned, the Palm Springs home certainly had these eam chairs that didn't necessarily make it to Fallingwater, but looking at Edgar Jr.'s New York apartment, we see a lot of these designers represented. So even if it wasn't necessarily, if it didn't necessarily end up at Fallingwater, it was still acquired by the family and used in their other living spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this might be a good question as well for you, Gabrielle, because you've been working on the spreadsheet, so you know the ins and outs. And I haven't seen it, but have you ever seen Homer Laughlin's Fiesta ware on any of these lists? No? Okay.
No, there was no Fiesta ware, which actually I thought was surprising because of the popularity of Fiesta ware in the United States, but it doesn't seem like it made the cut.
Yeah, and I was going to add too that we've also, we've never really had any Russell Wright objects at Fallingwater that we know of. We work around some historic inventories that the housekeeping staff had done periodically, but for instance, that's how we found out about the Heath. So it's, we're still sort of in discovery mode for a lot of things too, but there are some gaps which are interesting when you look at sort of what's happening in the popular culture and, that kind of department store aesthetic, and then what comes back to our collection. There was a question that someone raised about when, since the house was donated to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy in '63, and Edgar Kaufmann Jr. dies in 1989. There was about a 25-year span there where he was, bringing objects in, removing objects, suggesting objects, and the bulk of our collection was really accessioned following his death. So we had, most of our artwork and our furnishings, of course, came at that time as well. So we work on projects kind of continually. Rebecca's been looking at historic photographs of the interiors to sort of track the movement of artwork and the movement of objects and furnishings throughout the house. The painting on the wall in the second floor hallway may end up in the guest house and then move to another room. And so we're really starting to just dip our toes into understanding how they even functioned as far as collectors within Fallingwater. So there's some great pieces that were in the house at one time that we wish we would have had now, and others that we're discovering, like the knockdown chair, I think was a great thing for us to learn more about. So.
Yeah, and we did get a question about juniors education, which you did touch on a little bit, Gabrielle. He did attend a local private school in his youth. And then he did, if you want to talk about, again, his experience in Europe and in New York.
Yeah, so he did attend the preparatory school. And actually, it's kind of funny because Edgar seems to be fairly opposed to the traditional college life. And he did go to the School of Arts and Crafts in Vienna. And then he did also complete an apprenticeship. But I think in terms of what makes him a marked scholar is that he really drove his own learning. And he, you know, if you go to Fallingwater, you can see just a snippet of his extensive library. And throughout the home, there's books everywhere. I think that the Kaufmanns were, you know, avid readers. They ran in circles of intellectuals and creatives, and, you know, had ties back to some of the biggest thinkers at the time. So I think that he was influenced by all of those different elements and really took a hold of his own learning. He didn't need somebody, you know, directing him. He was fairly self-motivated in that way, and he followed his passions with earnest. So I think, yes, he was self-educated, I guess you could say.
Here's the question for you, Gabrielle. How do you feel Edgar Kaufmann Jr. would feel about IKEA?
Okay, so my sister asked this, calling her out. I can see her. I think he would have loved it. So I think that, you know, there's been some writing about this actually, how he would have felt about Target and IKEA and these kind of superstores. And I think a part of him would be frustrated by the lack of sustainability and quality that was offered. But if you think about like early IKEA furniture, it was actually fairly high quality, and maybe the IKEA of today would, you know, rub him the wrong way a bit. But I think that early IKEA would have been something that he was supportive of, because it's about bringing this simple aesthetic that really fits in anywhere into consumer homes, and there's a range of prices and item types available to kind of complement this, like, you know, sleek Scandinavian design in America. So it really brings it to the consumer, I guess. But I don't know, I think IKEA today would probably make him a bit upset, just because he was fairly sustainability minded.
Yeah. A couple of questions here about Paul, which I think is good to hear. We have a couple of pieces by Paul Mayen, who is Edgar's partner, in our collection, but they're both art objects rather than, you know, the functional objects. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to answer this, or Ali, or Gabrielle could, but, you know, they're more of sort of an industrial look to them. And even though he was included in these MoMA exhibitions, we really don't have any of those kind of industrial design products in the house.
No, we essentially have the extreme. We have these art objects that are more sculptural than anything else. And we do have 2 of them on display in the house. So please check out our website for our new online collections database. If you type in his name, you'll be able to find, just note that you do need the accent on the Mayen, on that E. You'll be able to see them. But then we have the other extreme, the visitor center, and the entire design for that space. So he was clearly, he had works from across the board. And I know, Gabrielle, that he had lamps and tables that were in good design. Is that correct?
Yeah, 4 pieces, 2 lamps, a table, and I think a cushion of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
so he was certainly a player in the field. And we do hear that is how, from family members, that is how the 2 met, was through good design, Edgar and Paul.
Yeah. And Gabrielle, could you tell us how you found that video clip Somebody asked about how to access it. Is it a YouTube?
So yeah, that video clip is actually one that I had spent quite a bit of time this summer looking for and going through broadcast archives. And then earlier this month, I noticed that it popped up on a timeline that is offered by MoMA, and it was their listing for 1950. They had 2 shots of good design and that video clip. It is on YouTube. If you go to the MoMA's YouTube channel, they have all of their clips available online there, but they don't credit the host or anything. So I wasn't able to locate that information. But I will go ahead and drop that, I guess, into, I don't know, are we sending out any information? I don't know how to send the link directly to that.
Well, the question was, would it be on the Fallingwater website? And it would not be. So I was saying that probably the easiest way to do it would be search through the MoMA archive online or through YouTube.
Yeah, go to their interactive timeline and click on 1950. And if you click on the video, it'll bring you to the YouTube page.
And I did see another question about if this is being recorded, and it is. And so please, give us a day or two to get it up on our website, but it will be there under our virtual experiences tab, along with the 7 previous webinars. So if you haven't seen those, please watch those as well. There's a variety of topics. So it's been a lot of fun to produce and to see what all of our colleagues on site are working on.
I see there's a question from Glenn's, and I think that I just want to touch on it really quickly because he brought up something that I think is important to keep in mind with good design. He says that it's like Bauhaus ideas, but decentralized, good, affordable designs across the spectrum. And that is definitely something that Junior was pulling on. He was very interested in the Bauhaus movement, and I think it is reflected in good design and on his outlook towards the democratization of design objects in general. So yes, Bauhaus, he loved it.
And we do have some work, again, connecting it back to the collection from Bauhaus artists on display in the house. Lionel Feininger, we have a painting from him in Edgar Jr.'s library. So again, search our online database if you want to see images of that. So yes, he was very much interested in the Bauhaus movement. I'm glad you called that out. But it looks like we answered most of our questions. So again, you can watch this on our website after today. And Gabrielle, thank you so much for joining us again virtually. We were so grateful to have you as an intern this summer. And as everyone can see, you did a tremendous amount of work in 10 weeks. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And please stay tuned and keep your eyes peeled for our next webinar, which will be coming out next month. All right, goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.